A few tense moments for Sri Lanka as they saw the finish line. And once again, you thought to yourself, are they not going to get there? Well, they huffed and they puffed and they got a free hit and they threw a bat in the air. And finally, by 3 wickets, with a little help from Duckworth, Lewis and Stern, that was the final margin. But lots of deliveries to spare. So you'd have to say, despite the loss of 7 wickets, they had plenty in the tank in terms of number of balls to spare. 227 for 7, illustrating even further that India's total was well below par. Avishka Fernando was not there at the end to finish things off, but certainly largely responsible for that Sri Lankan victory. For one final time in the series on Cricbuzz Live, we review this one-day international trio in the company of Harsha Bhogle and Zaheer Khan. Harsha, lots of ways to look at that. If you look at that scoreboard a couple of years later, you'll think, well, India pushed them till the end. They did, but with the number of balls to spare, they were in control, weren't they?
It was very similar. Both innings were very similar. The top 3 batsmen were batting pretty much like they owned the ground. And then suddenly from, say, about 170, 180 to 220, you were losing 4 or 5 wickets. The spinners came along. I thought India were one spinner short. Just the way that Jai Vikrama bowled along with Dhananjay, expected a little bit more from Krishnappa Gautam. But yeah, not enough runs. One of those 340s had to become an 80. See, the difference was that Avishka Fernando went on and made a 76. India got 340. So one of them had to go on. That's the point I made about what a Rohit or a Virat would do. Would have gone on and converted one of those. One of them would have been 100. So I think that was the difference between the two sides. But the objective behind this game was also to throw a lot of people in and see how they react. And some reacted well and others not so well.
Yeah, well, let's remind everybody who maybe are just sneaking in here at the end of the day, but may not have seen the proceedings at the start. 6 changes made by India, including 5 debutants. So it is always going to be a challenge. But Zaheer, at the end of the day, India will be proud of the individual efforts that were made. But you could see there was that little X factor missing to actually go and finish a match and win it.
Well, I think it was one change too many. And the reason I'm saying that was because the playing 11 balance needed to be achieved exactly in the same fashion. Doesn't matter who is playing. That's what you talk about when you decide that, okay, as a team we're going to play this brand of cricket. As a team, as a playing 11, we need certain kind of options. So I think from that point of view, when you look at, say, Nitish Rana's addition at that number, you know that Nitish Rana normally bats at opens the inning in the shortest format. Now bats at number 3, 4. So it's predominantly a top order batsman. You're asking him to actually do the role which he's not used to doing that often. Maybe playing Krunal Pandya there. So that one change too many. This is where I'm heading. So I think if Krunal was playing, that balance would have retained. So the 6th bowling option with the 6th bowler actually having ability to bowl those 10 overs. With Nitish Rana, you were short there. You used him for 3 overs, but you always knew that he's not a 10-over bowler, not a 5-7-over bowler as well so far in this format, and not a wicket-taking option on this track. So I think how the game went today with the new ball, the run scoring was relatively easier. As the ball got older, it was getting that much difficult for batters, and that's where you needed that extra spinner as well. So on the whole, it was a great series for India. But on this particular day, maybe they just went one change extra when they decided on that playing 11.
Just to stay on the changes, Harsha, Krunal Pandya, one possible suggestion, but yes, India didn't test the entire mathematics of the bowling combination because of the number of overs that Sri Lanka had to spare. If they had to do that, well, you would have had to go for a few more of Nitish Rana perhaps. Navdeep Saini bowled only 5. So really, in terms of what Zaheer is saying, it's a very valid point in terms of, yes, get new players in, but we didn't quite have like-for-like replacements.
No, because we said that right at the start, that the bowling looked very slim. And for that bowling to work, you needed that extra pace of Navdeep Saini to give you the wickets up front, to give you that buffer for the rest of the bowling, slip-in overs from Nitish Rana. But the moment you found that Saini was not exactly in best of form, and that Hardik is still looking very rusty, 5 overs of 43, needs lots more bowling behind him, then suddenly who did you have to go to but Nitish Rana? And he's all right to bowl an over in a T20 game here and there, and suddenly say, I got Virat and ABD out in 1 over. But I mean, it's 2-3 overs. You can't expect Nitish Rana to bowl 5 or 6. And that's why I agree with Zach. India were one bowler short. Now, who that bowler had to be, whether you wanted to give Deepak Chahar another game and play 3 seamers, or whether you wanted to play, as Zach said, play Krunal Pandya and have the extra spinner on that track, that was something for the team management to decide. But yes, India were one short. And I think given that Sri Lanka huffed and puffed, and they should have got there much easier.
Yeah, we had also discussed Kuldeep Yadav as a possible option, given that he may not necessarily be playing the T20. So there were various combinations. But just to conclude this discussion, Zaheer, was this a little bit overambitious? Because at the start of the series, we said twin objectives. One objective, of course, has been met with everybody getting a run. But you really wanted 3-0, didn't you, at the end of the day?
Absolutely, and I think that's something, that's the kind of standard you've set, and also that you want to set a standard where you're just taking the field. No matter who's taking the field, you're out there to win a game of cricket, and no matter which individuals are filling those playing 11 slots, you're actually deciding that, okay, this is how Indian team is going to play. This is the brand of cricket which you're going to play. So from that point of view, I think it doesn't matter how many changes you do, as long as you're retaining that balance, as long as you're achieving what you want to achieve as a balance of the side. That's what matters the most. So when I was looking at the game, I was purely looking at it from that point of view. And they created that platform. Certain errors on the field, when you're defending that kind of a total, you want the other things to fall on the other side. So you look at that extras conceded by this Indian team. You look at a couple of laps of concentration. Not talking about catches here, but just the basic game awareness. When you have fielders not fulfilling the criteria, of staying in the ring, conceding that no ball, which ends up in a free hit at a crucial stage in the game. So these are the things which are controllables. These are the things which you expect, no matter who is playing, to keep an eye on. So those are the things I'm sure Rahul Dravid will be keenly looking at, or maybe we'll have a small little chat that the game awareness is the far most basic thing which one expects at this level.
Just to put that in perspective, the extras were third highest today, by the way. You had the opener Avishka making 76, then you had Rajapaksa making 60, 65, extras were 30. For this team to win, the team that was picked, for them to win, they had to win the toss, which they did, and outscore Sri Lanka by plenty, because you're batting Rana 7, Gautam 8. So you have two people batting one position below where they can. So you packed your side with batsmen. Then you had to make 300 and take it beyond reach of Sri Lanka. The moment that didn't happen, the moment India only put 220, 230, you were always going to struggle.
One small observation, however flippant it may sound, Harsha. No team in this series, small as it might be, won a toss and won a match.
There you go. Trust you to pick that up.
But it's just the fact that Sri Lanka, first 2 matches, decided to bat first. Both totals were chased down, one easily, one with a bit of a fight. And on this occasion, Shikhar Dhawan decided to bat first, and it was chased down again. Yes, it was a bit of a huff and a puff, but in a sense similar to that second ODI. But if we have to look at the credit for Sri Lanka's victory here, India below par, a few little niggles as far as Zaheer Khan pointed out, but that partnership. You said, Harsha, 340s. They had not just one, they had 250s. Yeah. And that partnership really was the difference in this game.
Yeah, a 76 and a 65, a left-hander willing to taunt the ball. And they didn't have much challenge at that time. I really, as I said, I thought Saini had to, with the extra pace, hurry the batsman. This didn't seem like they had a challenge. I thought at that point they were going to win 3 down, 4 down at most. So, yeah, that was a big difference. I think there must have been more than one occasion when Shikhar was looking around and saying, okay, who? And didn't find another bowler to throw the ball to. I still think the Hardik Pandya of 18-19, who was bowling well, would reach the stage where he was batting 7 and giving you 10 overs. Remember? Hardik was giving you 10 overs in ODI cricket. I think Hardik bowling at that level would still have made a difference. But given that he's not, then I think, bowler shot.
Yeah, which is, I think, a fair way to summarize it, Zaheer. On Cricbuzz Combox, we had briefly touched upon it, that at least you could see Hardik's pace was up, his fitness was up, but little mixture of maybe ill luck, one inside edge hook that might just have hit the batsman on the helmet.
Always the case, isn't it? For it's not easy being a bowler, and when you're playing dual role, you have to manage yourself well. He has not bowled at the international level for the longest time, and it's actually almost about 1.5 2 years now that he's not bowled consistently. So I think it's going to take that much time for him, that many overs under his belt in practices under pressure, and just get that bowling rhythm going again. I think it's just matter of time, and just practice. I think that there is no other way of achieving that. It's just about bowling under pressure, bowling that many overs, doing that many repetitions to get things going.
Avishka Fernando, inevitably player of the match, and obviously reflected on the second game, Harsha. And to be fair to them, his performances. But if you look at the fact that Sri Lanka won this game, and they really ideally should have won the second one, 2-1 in Sri Lanka's favour is not unthinkable at this stage.
Well, the other way of looking at it is if Sri Lanka had won the second game, India would not have made all these changes and have gone in with a slightly different side. So I guess you could argue it both ways. But we always say that Sri Lanka will never be short of promise. It's only what you're doing with that promise that is the problem. I mean, you look down this side, Avishka Fernando, we saw at the World Cup, can play. They talk highly of Nisanka and Osha that they couldn't find a place. Rajapaksa showed he can play at this level. Very impressed with Chamika Karunaratne as well. Even when he bowled, there was something about him. He's not just he'll just run up and give you 3-4 overs. There's something more about him. Definitely Dhananjay coming back. Dhananjay De Silva didn't have such a great series, but there was something about him. Hasaranga. So there is the making of a side there. Once Kusal Pereira comes back, if they can coerce Angelo Matthews into coming back, maybe just go back to Karunaratne as captain. He did a good job. It's just that you see why this side should do better, but it hasn't. I mean, these 10 points are like gold for Sri Lanka. They're like good old Annasi, good proper Annasi for Sri Lanka.
Yeah, but I mean, if only they could have doubled that, and they could really have had more of it. But I think Harsha makes a good point. Had it been 1-1, it would have been a very different scenario. But at least they can take away from the fact that it's 2-1 in the series and a close-fought game in the middle game, with several key players missing. The injury to Kusal Pereira and those 3 key players who were not there. So overall, if they think to themselves at the end of the day that if we can get those 4 players back in the fold, things will be very, very different, Zaheer.
Well, overall, they got better and better. There is no doubt about it. We did speak about batters getting in, not really capitalizing, and going on to make that big score. Eventually, right now in the last game, you've seen Avishka Fernando, stepping up, making that effort of hanging around those 25-30 overs, which was important for them to set that platform. So they got better and better. Second game, particularly, the intensity as a team was just right up there. They really wanted to win that game, and that's how things turn around. It's a slow process. It's not going to happen overnight. That's what we are saying. But this game, I think, from the second to the third game now, getting a win under the belt, definitely going to boost their morale going into T20 series. And T20 series, mind you, is not going to be a cakewalk series, and that's what you often speak about, having that killer instinct. When someone is down and out, you just got to make sure that you keep them there. And maybe this win is a good setup for the next T20 series, which is going to be played very soon. I think that one is going to be a very well fought series, if you ask me.
I often wonder what's going into Rahul Dravid's notes. I think one of the points in Rahul Dravid's notes will be tell Shaw and Surya 300 is a lot of deliveries. You can play all 300. I mean, both Shaw and Surya should have converted one of those innings into 100. I mean, can you imagine Surya Kumar Yadav comes back with 100? Prithvi Shaw comes back with 100. I mean, I've always thought 100 is slightly, we talk too much about a particular landmark. 90 is pretty good too. But if they come back with a 90, 100, 110, can you imagine the confidence? Can you imagine the message they're sending out to everybody? So 300 is a lot of deliveries.
I suspect, Harsha, when Surya Kumar walks back to the dressing room holding that Man of the Series award in his hand, that's exactly what Rahul will tell him. Well done, but.
Yeah. And well done, but only because of what he's capable of. With most players, you would have said, well played. And to be honest, what do I remember this series for? I remember just the ridiculous ease with which he was hitting boundaries. I mean, this is a player at absolute peak of his ability. And that is why you must convert those into bigger. We're only saying this because of what he's capable of. With any other player, I said, well done.
Is that the sort of reception he might gets in a dressing room, Zaheer, when seeing his oodles of talent when he walks back in and he gets a 38 instead of a 78?
Well, he changes the tempo of the game, isn't it? Like the way he's batting and the kind of strike rate he's batting with, and with such ease he's playing those shots and hitting those boundaries. At number 3, you still feel that okay, it's a newish ball. The ball is harder. It's that much easier. There is a field restriction also in place, so it's that much easier for a batsman to do that. But when you do that at number 5, 6, that's when you realize that okay, it's just the sheer ability and sheer understanding and the timing and to be able to just understand the field placement. And you've actually seen Surya play against the turn over covers to the ball which is coming in, and you've seen him hit sweep shots and shots through mid wicket to the ball again going away from him. So that speaks a lot. I think how many times you see batters actually able to do that. Like you normally taught to play with the turn. You make use of the swing. If it's an outswing, you go with that. But he's someone who is able to maneuver the field in with such a ease, and that's baffling to see all the time. And he's getting better and better at it.
I think maneuver is a good word, Harsha. Every time you describe him without using words, I can see the hands maneuvering as you're trying to describe Surya. There's only one person you can describe. And he said that. He said that at the post-match, I wish I'd scored more in the last 2 games.
And the way he is batting, I would imagine from watching from a distance that he plays with an incredibly light bat. You could see when Azharuddin was in his peak, he would just, the bat was just sort of flowing around like a spoon in his hand. So you get the feeling from this distance, he must be playing with a very light bat because of the impression he gives. So I've enjoyed. I mean, sometimes you're watching there and whatever, then your mind drifts. When Surya Kumar Yadav comes into your mind doesn't drift because you're sitting and watching. What is he going to do next? He puts you on the edge of his seat a little bit. I mean, I'm looking for it. He has to carry this form into the T20s, into the IPL, into the T20 World Cup.
Let's just finish off talking about a couple of the bowlers. Surya Kumar Yadav, player of the series, certainly contributed to India winning 2-1. But Avishka Fernando, huge shout out to him, player of the match, and got plenty of runs in the series as well. But from a bowling perspective, remember, India had some newcomers. India had 2 debutants who we'd like to talk about. One, Rahul Chahar. Zaheer, there's always going to be that healthy discussion because much as you'd like it, there's really one spot up for grabs when you're talking about a leg spinner in the Indian 11. Yuzvendra Chahal, the established man, Rahul Chahar, in a sense, the pretender, pushing for that one spot. How do you rate him today, Chahar versus Chahal?
Well, it's always good news when someone is pushing someone, and that makes it really, really good for the team. So Indian team that way will be very happy that Rahul Chahar is pushing Yuzvendra Chahal. And both have got phenomenal ability. I think Yuzvendra Chahal has got a great reading of the game. He goes with the game very nicely. He's willing to play the chess what he's used to playing off the field. He uses that to his advantage more often than not. And I think Rahul Chahar has got equally good ability. It's just about now getting more and more exposure at the highest level, understanding his own strengths, and also trying to better how he's analyzing the batter and different situations of the game. Because I think that's a very important aspect of the game, which only experience can teach you. And if you have an open lookout to learning around that and really getting better and better at it, for a bowler, I think the graph which you unfold your career with really changes and takes shape in a completely different manner otherwise.
The chess player against the dreadlock destroyer. It's going to be an interesting comparison. Harsha, do you reckon, and I'm going to finish off by
because I thought you were going to talk about Zakaria, so I was just waiting to listen to Zach talking about Zakaria. So
no, we will come back to him for Zakaria, but I want to just finish with your opinion. on one guy maybe with more revs, the other guy with maybe more guile. And I think it was a wonderful comparison that Zaheer drew to Yuzvendra Chahal, the chess player.
True. I think it's 6 of this and half a dozen of that, to be honest. And if Rahul Chahar has come to that position against Chahal, my gut feel is both bowling at their best. I know Zach likes Chahar equally. I just thought there's a little bit more to Chahal when they're bowling at their best. But I think this kid is quite solid, Rahul Chahar is quite solid. He doesn't have, I think the IPL had 1 or 2 bad matches, but MI stayed with him and kept him bowling in the following matches. He doesn't have too many bad matches. So, he's the kind of fellow you look at the end of 7-8 matches and think, what did he do? And you see 7 matches, he's taken 9 wickets, 10 wickets at an economy of around 6.5, 7. So he's there. It doesn't always convey that he's there. I think he's a solid player. If I was Chahar, I'd be going up to my cousin and say, "Bade bhai, zara batting, thodi meri improve karwa ke dena."
Maybe that could be the X factor. The fielding and the batting at 8, maybe 9, 10, wherever you bat, that could be a deciding factor at the end. I'm just being greedy and naive. What about both of them in the 11 together? Maybe that's for another day.
Don't forget, there's a Chakravarti there. There's a Chakravarti there who's for KKR was bowling the tough overs ahead of Sunil Narayan.
Right now in line, sir. Right now in queue behind these two. But
So,
there is.
so GB, you're trying to change Kulcha to Chacha.
Very good, sir.
And Chakravarti is also Cha. So you can do Cha-Cha-Cha, the dance.
Superb cha-cha-cha. Very good. So on that note, someone who's from Cha to Sa, Chetan Sakaria. Obviously very, very impressive, wonderful story. But once he's been thrown in the deep end, you feel that he had a couple of more strokes that he needed to swim with, Zaheer.
But also before Zach, there's one thing I was very, very curious to know from you. He bowled that back of the hand ball to Dhananjay De Silva. The bounce he got, how do you get that much bounce? I mean, that ball will always get you more bounce, but
the last bowler I've seen bowling back of the hand and getting that kind of a bounce was Venkatesh Prasad. After that, there've been many bowlers who've bowled back of the hand, but no one really got the kind of bounce which Sakaria got today. So I think, it's a special talent. Wicket also helped because it was on the turning side. I had that little bit of extra bounce and a grip in the wicket, so that really helped him. But he's very good with back of the hand slow. That's his strength for sure, and something which differentiates him from rest of the bowlers at the moment. For sure, it's not an easy delivery to master, and he certainly mastered it. So it's going to help him in his career for sure. What I really liked about Sakaria was the fact that not often now these days you see the bowlers coming in their second spell or third spell, and to be able to get that swing going, and then you still saw that swing from him, which was very exciting for me. Needs to add a little bit of pace for sure, which I'm sure with more training and the right guidance, he will be able to crank it up for sure. But the control which he has shown in terms of hitting those lengths and the game temperament, not only just here in IPL as well, was commendable. So the kid certainly has a bright future ahead of him.
If you want a left-hander, in that lineup somewhere, I mean, and I know all teams like to have that left-hander. All of India's fast bowlers are right-handers. So if you want that left-hander there, and you had Natarajan in that role, but his fitness is under a bit of a cloud, I think Sakaria has quietly said, I'm also there.
Yeah, we used to have that one left-hander everyone turned to in those days. First name started with Z.
But alongside him, there was RP, there was Nehra, there was Irfan. Then suddenly all the left-handers died. And now we've got to come.
And still he led the way. Yeah. But I think, we're talking about Sakaria. Maybe one quick look at his numbers for those who might have forgotten as far as the IPL was concerned. We're going to have 20 over cricket coming up very soon. And this was what he came up with. Really made an impression early on. And now it's up to him to take it to the next level. He's got a little taste of 50 over cricket, but he'll want to see how he can squeeze into that T20 international lineup as and when he gets the opportunity. But as far as this particular series is concerned, I thought now that we are done with the three matches, Zaheer, I'll come to you first. Look back at the three ODIs and pick your top moment of the series.
Well, for me, the top moment has to be Char's inning, Deepak Char. I'm talking about. It was actually that inning which the way he approached it. He when he went into bat, he was Kunal was there, so he showed a lot of maturity at that stage to not really go berserk at that stage, letting Kunal to lead the partnership, and then taking control of the game once Kunal was out, playing those shots off Sandakan as well. That particular shot which he played off covers, that showed that he was very confident and was full knowing that that he's going to win that game or not going to leave the game till the end. So I think that innings, the whole nature of it, the nature of the situation, how he handled himself, how he built it, has to be the highlight of the series for me.
It really will be the talking point of it. I'll come to you, Harsha. Tough to choose from that. I know you talked about a lot of artistry with bat in hand, but I'm going to leave it to you. Your moment of the series.
If you want to pick one performance, it had to be that. If you look at it from the Sri Lankan point of view, they'll say the emergence of Karuna Ratne, held his school in the end overs twice, bowled a little bit. Avishka Fernando rediscovering his form from their point of view. But one performance you cannot look beyond Deepak Chahar. But for moments that made me sit up and go, wow, there were a couple. One was the first day when Prithvi Shaw was hitting through the offside. And yet, as he was hitting through the offside, he played one on the onside. I don't know. Look, we all in Hyderabad, the way we grew up watching cricket on matting wickets and whatever. Anyone who plays that shot, we go, wow. That's why Azharuddin, Lakshman, we all like these kind of players. These guys were not as risky, but there was one on drive that Prithvi Shaw played, and one today just nonchalantly from Surya Kumar through the onside. So those couple of shots stood out for me. As a performance, you can't look beyond Chahar. But if I'm looking back at the highlights, I'm looking at Shaw and Surya Kumar.
And Harsha, if you had to describe it Hyderabadi style, as you love to do, Mia bhai, what was that like?
Zabardast mara I mean, in Hyderabad, everybody played like that, whether it was from Jaisimha to Abbas Ali Beg and even Sultan Selim Nagesh and those kind of players. Then you came along, MV Sridhar also batted a bit like that. So I don't know if it was the matting influence or it's just what you grew up watching. But for us, anyone who plays that through mid-on is wow.
Well, the only bragging rights I can talk about right now, and it's a good time to slip it in at the end of an entire wonderful discussion from both of you, knowledgeable, artistic, was the fact that somehow I managed to get the number right about India's or Sri Lanka's power play score.
He was waiting to bring
you have to cling to small victories, Harsha.
Did you win your fantasy league game or no?
Absolutely.
Okay. I must tell people that, and I've said this before, that if the game gets a little dull, we just watch Gautam because he's calculating his fantasy league. So well done.
It was Chetan Sakaria who was the final deciding factor for me. Up and down, those 2 wickets. I was the only person who had him in my group.
But you play against your own Benami opponent and you pick a bad team for him anyway. So what's the big deal?
No, not Benami opponent. I play... Anyway, we will not get into that.
It's okay. He's good at fantasy league.
Before we talk about the T20 series, let's have a quick reminder of certain incidents that have taken place around the world, which have certainly astounded us. Not things we want to hear, but nonetheless, don't want to harp too much about what happened and why it happened, but the impact it might have going forward, the knock-on effect. That match at Bridgetown, Barbados, toss done, about to start play, suddenly told, boys, we're not playing right now. We've seen more games coming up, and this is what's coming up for Australia. They may not have that game rescheduled. West Indies are entertaining Pakistan for T20s and Test matches, and Australia have to fly to Bangladesh to play that series. So not ideal, Harsha.
And in Bangladesh, they virtually laid down the law, saying we want it like this and like this, like they did in South Africa and didn't go to South Africa, remember? There are cases in England, everyone's playing cricket in England, but in South Africa, they had one case and Australia didn't go. So I don't see them playing this one again. But my fear is, if it was someone in that West Indies dressing room, as is suggested, then he was in very close contact with others. So there must be others who've picked it up. And I think it has implications for tournaments around the world. I worry enormously about England. I know England's philosophy is that we vaccinate everybody, treat it as a flu, throw it open, let's go and celebrate. But what if one of the players picks it up? Because I don't think they've got as tight quarantine as they had last year. So if one of the players picks it up, and there's a couple of the Indian players pick it up, then where are you going from there? So my fear is that international sport, we're already seeing the Olympics are getting affected by withdrawals, they're getting COVID there. My fear is that however debilitating it is for a player, you still have to play sport with very rigid protocols, with very rigid bubbles. I mean, the best bubble that I saw, to be honest, by some distance, was last year's IPL in Dubai, Abu Dhabi. It was excellent, and it lulled us into thinking that you can play, but it was so strict, that bubble. So my fear is that going ahead, we will have to have as strict. And as Bish told me, the intent there was to have it just as strict, but you need to have the resources to have strict bubbles too. So I'm a little worried about England, India, and I think this result would ensure that both the IPL and the T20 World Cup will just got a little more strict.
Yeah, I can tell you, I can speak from experience, Harsha. This entire bubble train began at the CPL last year.
Yes.
Everyone looked at the CPL and it was a very stringent bubble. I was there, I can tell you. But I agree with you fully. After that, and after the IPL bubble, which was very professionally run, maybe people have got a little lax with vaccinations having started, Zaheer. And I think they'll have to go back to saying that if we want to play sport, we will have to sacrifice audiences. We'll also have to have the players in very strict conditions.
No, just generally as well. I think COVID is still not gone anywhere, and it's just that the duration of that has been such a long duration that at times you tend to forget that, and you just need incidences and small reminders of this fashion to keep you on track. I think it's something which comes. It's like human to feel like that. Human to have that freedom of what you've been used to doing. But when it comes to sport, and it's not only you what you're looking at. That's what team sport is also all about. So I think it's you have to look for one another, and that's something which is going to be very important going forward for big tournaments as well. World Cup is a big tournament. IPL is a big tournament. Obviously, it was paused, so it's not the tournament which is complete. It's the tournament which is going to be half finished, which we'll be looking to complete. So there is a lot at stake. So I'm sure the discipline of maintaining that stringent protocols around the bubble has to be very closely looked after.
Yeah, what Zaheer was talking about, of course, there were matches during game day, just like Bridgetown, Barbados, 24 hours ago. We've seen instances, not just in cricket, in other sports as well, of COVID affecting sport and affecting it right on match day itself. And we can just tell you about a few instances that happened. Ahmedabad was one of them. And I think that was just the first one, KKR, RCB. That's the first time we heard of that possible bubble breach. And that led to several other games also getting suspended. And then the pausing of the IPL. Yankees against Red Sox, that happened. And that's a big one. I mean, you don't have to know too much about baseball in America to know that when the Yankees play, whether or not they win or not, they're a huge franchise. So it's huge, and it can affect the best of us whatsoever. And lessons to be learned from there, lessons to be learned going ahead. For now, it's just looking a couple of days ahead. And the T20 International Series, Harsha, that is going to be hugely significant. Yes, we've been talking up the ODI series, saying, listen, let's look at the points. Let's try and keep the format alive. Let's try and look at ODI performances, also get to that T20 World Cup. But this is the actual format looking ahead to the T20 World Cup.
Oh, no doubt. There's lots more at stake. So we looked at Bhuvneshwar Kumar there, but now we're going to look at him through very different eyes. How does he bowl in the power play? How does he bowl at the death? Is Chahar now emerging as a more powerful Bhuvi almost? Where do you fit Chakravarti in? Because you definitely want to look at Varun Chakravarti. Do you play Krunal Pandya and Varun Chakravarti? Do you play Chahar and Chahal? So there's lots to decide there. And I have little doubt in my mind that India will play both Ishan Kishan and Sanju Samson. The question is who bats where, because they all bat at 3, right? Surya bats 3, Ishan has batted 4 for MI, but when he plays for Jharkhand, he bats up the order. Does Sanju Samson come down to 5, or do they say, okay, we'll have a left-hander down at 5? So there's things to think about, but I think we'll see from this side Ishan Kishan coming in place of Manish Pandey in the T20s. You'll get both the Pandya brothers, and then the bowling, Bhuvi and Deepak Chahar definitely in.
So all the names, Zaheer, that Harsha has mentioned so far have got a look in at one point or another in the ODI series. How about a couple who've not got a look in and they've been there already? Ruturaj Gaikwad, Devdutt Patikal.
I think they'll have to hope that the first 2 games is an easy victory for Indian team, and then they go the similar way how they've gone. Otherwise, you look at the squad. I think for them to start into playing 11 is going to be difficult. Unless the team management is thinking otherwise. But you have Shikhar Dhawan, the captain. Obviously, he's going to open the innings. You have Prithvi Shaw, Surya Kumar Yadav. Manish Pandey is going to find it hard to come in the side. Sanju Samson and Ishan Kishan. So I think there are too many options and too many top order options there for the team management to think about. So looking at that, I think it's going to be tough for maybe Devdutt Patikal to feature in that playing 11. But on the whole, I think it's going to be an interesting series. And I'm saying that just because how Sri Lanka has progressed in this ODI series was maybe glimpses of what's coming India's way in the T20 series, and in the shorter format you've seen the competition and the margins also gets reduced. So that way I think I'm looking forward to see the competition, I think, and when there's good competition, then you always enjoy watching the game of cricket.
Yeah, we did say 2-pronged objective, Harsha, at the start of the ODI series. Here as well, I mean, you're always looking to go out as the national side to go and win. But there will be just that little different edge to it. There are certain players who are in England right now, ready to play Test cricket, who walk into that T20 World Cup side. In fact, the 11. You put those guys aside and then look at how many slots you have left.
Yeah, so who are these two? There's Rohit and there's Virat. But outside of Rohit and Virat, who walks into the
Bumrah.
T20 side outside of these people?
Just
Then there's Bumrah. Yeah, Bumrah at the bowling end. But otherwise, this is a far more representative India side than the ODI side. Because in the ODI side, you probably got a few more who might have come in. Ravindra Jadeja will come in as well. But this is, in terms of batting, far more representative. But with the T20 World Cup coming around, there's no T20 internationals other than these 3. Because India don't play anymore other than the 2 warm-up games between the IPL and the T20 World Cup. So I think there's places up there. Remember, there's a Shreyas Iyer also who's waiting to show that in the IPL he'll come in at that number 4 spot. I think Surya Kumar Yadav has done pretty much enough to seal that 3 if Virat wants to open. But I'd love Prithvi Shaw to say, you Virat Kohli, but me Shaw can go and get runs quickly as well. So I'd like to see Prithvi Shaw. I'd like to see Sanju Samson, Ishan Kishan just put in powerful performances to make selection of that team a little more difficult.
And just to complete the picture, as it were, we've talked a lot about Bhuvaneshwar Kumar Zaheer over the course of the ODI series. Now, as Harsha started this discussion by saying, looking at him through different eyes, giving him those 4 overs, when does he bowl them, how does he bowl them, and where does he slot in next to Jasprit Bumrah?
I think it's a problem of plenty. More and more names you go there, with regard to batting as well. Like as Harsha was talking, I was thinking, okay, there are so many names here, and we've forgotten KL Rahul's name as well, who's been given the confirmation that okay, you have to keep, and then you will be playing in the playing 11. So
and Rishabh Pant?
Yeah, so I think it's definitely going to be a problem of plenty, and more and more series like this happen where you kind of give opportunity to more and more players and create that magnitude of that problem even bigger. So looking at Bhuvaneshwar also is going to be a similar sort of problem. You have many bowlers now who are looking and falling into that similar kind of category. The category which I'm talking about is bowling with the new ball, maybe bowling one over, because Bumrah is going to take the load of bowling those 2 overs at the back end. So which actually gives you flexibility of using that swing bowler at the top. But when you're looking at that option as well, you have Shardul, who's had a great Australian series and have been shaping up well. You have Deepak Chahar, who's been doing the similar kind of role. You have Bhuvneshwar Kumar. You have someone like Sakaria also showing that promise. So if you want to add that variety, are you going to go that route as well? Because there is a chance that you might think of saying, okay, Bumrah, Deepak Chahar, and then you add a variety of a left armer, which also has an option of Natarajan. So I think the list is long. So at the end of the day, it's just going to boil down to how and what are the venues, what are the kind of conditions you are looking at, because your decision actually is not only going to be made on what a player is bringing to the table, it's also going to be what kind of conditions and what kind of positions you are playing and the matchups which have been used so much these days. So I think it's going to be a very complex decision making, but nonetheless, I think the options are there for any direction which a team management decides to go, and that's why it's so critical to define that. I think it's very important that you define what kind of 11 you're looking at, what kind of skeleton or what kind of combination you're looking at as a team to get you some kind of assurance around winning that World Cup.
Yeah, the coach.
I think 6, 7, 8. I think 6, 7, 8 have to guarantee you 8 overs and someday give you 10 overs. Then you can say to 9, 10, 11, you're in the side, so you give me 12 overs most days. And that's why if Hardik can give you 2, 3 overs, Jadeja can give you 2, 3 overs, then at 8, you have a choice between Shardul, Deepak Chahar, Bhuvneshwar, because that number 8 still needs to bat. And I think that is where Deepak Chahar, Shardul Thakur have a bit of an edge. But if 6 and 7 are giving you those overs, then 8, he's not giving you 4, he's giving you 3, but he's giving you power batting at the end. It becomes a big advantage.
All I can say listening to both of you is that when we see a tough third umpire decision and we go, who wants to be an umpire? I'm trying to think of coach, captain, selector. It'll be a bit of a mini series. You can make
selector's okay. Selector's easy because picking 15, 16 is easy. Who will play the 11 is tough.
Harsha, trust me, after this discussion, I'm saying picking 15 also is tough with all the names that we've got.
Exactly. You've missed out on Aksar as well, who is doing a similar kind of role.
Another name comes up.
And Ravindra Jadeja.
And you'll have the team analysts throwing in numbers and saying, can you play Rohit, Virat and KL all together, because they all tend to have one style of play. So you can't have that. You need a Shreyas in between. You need a Surya in between. Someone will say, but I need a left-hander in the top order.
Yeah. I told you, mini-series. It'll be a hit mini-series. Just a camera, coach, captain, selector, trying to get the 15 shortlisted for Team India at the T20 World Cup. But we've had fun discussing it.
What if Shami turns around and says, how many people defend a 5-run over in the super over?
I think on the whole, the bottom line is, I think whoever making that decision has to be ready to make the tough calls.
Yes,
because
absolutely.
when you're looking at this long list of players and players who are so able to fit into that playing 11, you cannot keep everyone happy. You cannot be fair to everyone. And I think that's something which they need to face at some stage and be ready to take that call.
I'm thinking we're the host nation. Is it too late to have 2 teams entered in the tournament?
No.
I'm thinking back to that Australia tri-series every year after year. One year Australia decides we're going to have 2 teams and they did exactly that.
But there will be 2 teams again. India go to South Africa in January, February. It's a great time to have a T20 series somewhere. Maybe you could have a T20 series in India, but the guys are not in South Africa. Anyway, it's 12:15, so we can talk about that afterwards.
Yes. So let's just quickly finish on Sri Lanka. The M word that we hate using, but the fact is they've won that third ODI. They want to look at results. Of course, they want to try out their own players. Of course, they themselves are looking to select players for that T20 World Cup and identify talent. So partly, of course, whether you want to use momentum or not, there are a few players from the ODI series who have stood out, but maybe the odd name that will come in for the T20 series, Harsha.
Maybe they'll play a spinner less and have a seamer more. But they're missing their all-rounder. I mean, if someone's got a muscle tear, then he's not coming back. I don't know how bad the injury for Hasaranga is. If it's just a little strain and they're worried about a tear, then maybe they rested him here today. But if there is that muscle injury, he's not coming back, because the person in our studio along with us is not only a master of left-arm swing bowling, but knows more about hamstrings and calves and groin than any other player around. So he'll tell you he's not coming back if it's an injury.
It's doubtful for sure, knowing that the series is going to get over in a week's time. Even the muscle strain, usually you're talking about 4-5 days.
Yeah.
So I doubt that he will be taking part in the series. But I think Sri Lankan team will take cues from the ODI series and maybe look at pace off options more. That's something has worked for them, especially against Prithvi Shaw and the power of Indian batters. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of road they decide to take. Isru Udana is someone who has been a T20 specialist, so maybe he will get a look in again. Chamira has been their main bowler. They'll look to close the innings with these options. With batting, I think the similar kind of faces will take on the field, and we'll see how it goes.
Yep, fair enough. So that's as far as the personnel are concerned. But just in a word, purely from performance-wise, Harsha, India still favourites to win that series?
I mean, if you're not favourites against Sri Lanka, how are you going to win the T20 World Cup? I'm not talking down Sri Lanka. I'm just saying, look at where they are on the rankings. They've not qualified for the T20 World Cup. They're going to have to go and play a qualifying tournament. If you want, and if you really believe in your depth, and if you think that we've got 5, 6, 7 players who are going to make that side here already, then if you don't do 3-0, then you must be disappointed. As I said, Sri Lanka, in T20, anyone can beat anybody. But if I was in that Indian camp, I'd be saying, yeah, that's the result I want.
Yeah, especially after 2-1, Zaheer, you agree 3-0 is imperative?
I've been saying otherwise, GB. So I think it's going to be a very closely fought series, and I'm saying purely because of you just go back to the India-Australia series where they played 3 ODIs. They lost the first 2, won the last one, and they turned it around in the T20 series. So I think that's what momentum does. That's what sometimes you need, that spark, and maybe to a certain degree, I think the Sri Lankan team has got that spark. And I'm just saying it purely because of how they fought in that second game. They wanted to turn things around. They wanted to bring that energy out, and I'm just giving them this chance only because of that. Just because of what the body language which I've seen on the field. I think they're ready to put up the fight, and this win will be like that tonic which they were looking for, which will work wonders in the coming series.
Yeah, well, they'll probably want to start that match right now if they could have their way. Mickey Arthur was beaming; he was looking full of energy, wanting to get the T20 International Series started. But one man who's always beaming, whether he's here or not, whether he's making other people frown with his tough questions, he's somewhere listening in to us. Joy Bhattacharya, what did he have for us? Yeah. This is what he had posed for us. In cricket history, if Sean Tate was the 4th, Sim Towdy the 3rd, and I'm going to stick to that, and Suleiman Ben the 2nd, who was the 1st. He loves his lists. He absolutely loves his lists. And let's quickly go on to give you the answer. Anyone has any idea where Joy was going with this? I certainly didn't. And let's give you the answer. Daniel Vettori bowled the first super over in a T20 international, and of course the other gentleman followed suit.
It had to be New Zealand. No? Super overs and New Zealand go together, so it had to be New Zealand bowling a super over. And Tim Southee bowled so many super overs thereafter. Remember, India, New Zealand, Southee was bowling all the super overs, and India were winning all of them.
Yeah, there you go. Well, it was a reverse list, as he likes. And who won that reverse list? Who was the fastest to get to that reverse list? And it is our good friend Tanmoy Chakraborty, who changes his DPs just like all of us change clothes every morning. Tanmoy, we're keeping a close eye on you to see exactly what you look like every time you send that. Well done to get that answer right. Daniel Vettori, the answer. And we had hoped that this would not be a 2-day international, as one of our colleagues put it on our WhatsApp group. It ended up being a TDI. Gaurav, thanks for that, encouraging all that. But we did spill into the next day. What we will remind you is there were so many highlights. Harsha talked about it. Zaheer talked about it. You can still catch it all on Cricbuzz Plus, where we have all the highlights there for you to whet your appetite for more cricket to come in the T20 International Series. And that is only the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more if you subscribe. That's all we have from this one-day international series. We're not going too far. In 48 hours, in less than 48 hours time, 7:20 p.m. is when we come on air. 8 o'clock is when first ball will be bowled. We'll see you for that. India versus Sri Lanka. Thank you, Harsha. Thank you, Zaheer. Good night, all.